And here we are, we're live. It says it up in the corner. We did it.
We did it. I'm so
We
proud
don't
of
even have to
us.
question it.
Yeah,
It's just, no, y'all are live.
you did it.
Hi, everyone. This is Still Comfy with Jules and Nat. I'm Nat, and that's Jules. And Still Comfy is an exploration. Has it been a while since we've done YouTube? We haven't done YouTube since before Christmas.
Right. Did we do Love Actually was our
Love
last
Actually was the
YouTube.
last one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We graciously bowed out of the Mighty Ducks for the beginning of January. We just bowed right out.
We weren't ready.
We weren't ready.
I wasn't
And
ready.
no. So instead, we are here today doing Mermaids, which is the 1990s classic with
Mm-hmm.
Cher raising one Winona Ryder. And I was right last
You
week. It
were,
is
yeah.
Christina. It's a baby Christina Ricci.
Yeah, she had to have been like 7 or 8.
I honestly did not comprehend that her and Winona Ryder were not the same age. So I was like, that can't be right. I because
Oh.
think about it. We all watched Winona Ryder and Christina Ricci movies relatively parallel to one another.
Well, but in the 90s, Winona Ryder was doing the more 20-year-old stuff. How to Make an American
Yeah.
Quilt, Little Women, Reality Bites.
Yeah, but I was a child during the 90s.
I mean, me too.
I was like
Christina
2 when the
Ricci's a
movie
couple
came
years.
out.
2?
Yeah, because the movie came out in 90. I looked it up. It barely
Oh,
makes the 90s.
oh,
No.
oh, right. So they probably filmed in 89.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 6. I was 6.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Math.
Mermaids, I could do the manic recap that I normally do, or I could read us a text exchange from Hot Mom.
Oh, I vote for text exchange from Hot Mom.
Sure. So I'm watching Mermaids last night because it's my job. And I text my mom because I like to brag about how cool my job is. And I'm like, hey, mom, I'm watching Mermaids with Cher because this is a movie we used to watch together when I was a child. She texts back a full hour and 40 minutes later. I love that movie.
Was she
And then
watching
I
it
write,
before she texted you?
no,
Go ahead.
my
Because an hour and
family
40 minutes, that's how
largely
long the movie
ignores
is.
me. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
My family largely ignores me.
I'm
So then
sorry.
I type back, Mom, no shade, but you allowed one of my favorite movies to be one where a 26-year-old social recluse deflowers a teenage Winona Ryder in a Catholic bell tower. And then today, she texted me, it's a beautiful movie.
Well, I'm really glad that you brought up the 26-year-old thing with your mom, because after you recommended that we watch this, because remember, I've not seen this film before.
Oh, you've never seen Mermaids?
No, because remember, I was sheltered with a capital shh.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm watching this and I said, wait a minute, did they just say Jake Ryan is 26?
Uh-huh. It is also at 34 years old. That's the first time I've clocked it. I don't know if I was only watching the made for TV version because we did not own this movie.
Maybe they clipped it
clipped
out.
it. So they were like, a 26-year-old Jake from 16 Candles just be feeling up children that he's driving to school. Because he's also her school bus driver.
Yeah. Because that scene is kind of racy for 1990.
It truly is racy. I don't remember it being that racy. I remember JFK's death being the center point of their physical relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, I do remember this. I did not remember, and maybe it was because I was a child watching this, so I don't know what penetration face looks like, but I do not remember clocking the moment that he enters her body. But this time I was like, oh no, because Winona's a star.
Yeah.
There is a clear moment on her face where she's like, and now he's inside of me.
Yeah. And then also, but doesn't this movie take place over multiple years? Because didn't it say 1961? And then we had a Kennedy's
There was
death,
New Year's.
And then there was New Year's and they were in 64. So then I was like, wait a minute. Why isn't anybody aging?
Why isn't anyone aging? Also, it couldn't have taken place over several years because the whole thing about Cher is she never stays in town for a year.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't think continuity was like a big thing in
I
the
think,
90s. I don't think
yeah.
people were like, there's no way that anyone's ever going to talk about our movie. So
Right.
we don't have to pay attention.
Right, that's true. I do want to take a moment and talk about how gorgeous Cher is.
Cher is a literal goddess. She's so fucking hot in this movie.
Just stunning.
I wrote at the very end of my notes after this whirlwind of a movie, I was like, Cher, the OG hot mom.
Oh, yes. When
Yes.
all the girls were like to Winona's character, Charlotte, your mom. That look at there's my mom, and it's like
There's
this
my mom.
older woman who's kind
Yeah.
of like frumpy clothes, and her hair's kind of old looking. And then they're like, "But look at your mom. I want to be like your mom."
Yeah. And I truly believe that that's how my mom lived her life,
She was
trying to
inspired by.
emulate Cher from Mermaids.
I
Because we
mean,
watched
I.
this movie a lot when I was a child. And I'm
I.
like, mother. And like, she also let me watch because late at night they would play the racier Dirty Dancing with the actual sex
Mhm.
scenes and the
Mhm.
abortion. So my
Mhm.
mother would also allow me to come downstairs from my bedroom as a child and be like, oh, are you not sleeping? What if we watch Dirty Dancing, the racy version, every night that you're supposed to be like preparing for school the next day or whatever?
Yeah, yeah.
So I knew every sex scene by heart in Dirty Dancing, and I'm like, the choices,
I did sneak dirty dancing quite a bit when I was a kid.
the choices that we made
Mhm.
as an adult. I do have a question for you.
Okay.
So Cher is like the OG hot single mom. How
Mhm.
do you feel about how in the 90s we portrayed single moms as just floozies who needed to get out of town if she got a reputation?
Isn't it funny? I was like, I bet Natalie's gonna ask me about single mom shit.
I am because
Because I'm a single mom.
I have because I'll let you answer. I have an answer to this question. I just like I have no frame of reference. It's just respectful for me to answer it.
So I had a couple of things going through my head about the whole thing. One, it was like, okay, so it's the 60s, so a woman
Mhm.
really does need a man to
Correct.
survive because
And we
that's
talked about
still.
that for now and then.
Yes, and that's the structure of our culture. Even still to this day, if you don't live in the right area for career advancement, you basically are dependent on getting married or having a sugar daddy of some kind.
Correct.
Um, and then just this idea that she's a floozy was like kind of frustrating because I
Right.
felt like that was a very male lens to see her through. And
Mhm.
I don't think the writers I think there was some, I don't remember
The
the names in the credits if it was female or not, but it was really frustrating because the way that they sort of lead you into this whole like she has to leave because she's fucked up,
she's a
but
broken woman.
but and then you have this guy who shows up who's just adorable-ish.
Lou is a gem.
He's
Lou
a
is
gem,
a gem.
and that's
He's
the
a
dream,
gem.
is to find somebody like that, and then, you get a little insight about how, like, with Charlotte's dad, he just wasn't into it, which is typical,
Yeah.
and then with, Katie's dad, it was just kinda like, "Well, that happened.
Well,
Whoopsie."
and then he just
Um
drove away into the night.
into the night. And so it leans all of the responsibility of child rearing on the woman and none on the man. And what I saw towards the end of the film was here's just another woman who's victim of the system because she just wanted to be in love and she wanted a little bit of freedom and she didn't want to conform in the way, but she still wanted to be loved. And then, she had to figure out how to survive and she's being punished for it.
Well, and my answer to this is when my mother and I were watching this, Just Us Girls, it was very much we're gonna watch this because it's about Cher truly Winona Ryder, but Christina Ricci plays a bigger role in the movie than normally for the little kid who's in the midst
Right.
of the teenage mom experience. And we're going to talk about mommy and daughter dynamics. And I was like, oh, that'll be a good one to do. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, this movie literally makes women out to be the devil. Like, women
Yeah.
are evil in this world.
Yeah. And you really see that a lot too in Winona Ryder's character because she's so desperate to be a nun. So you can only be two things, a nun
Right.
or a slut.
Yeah, this movie is what they need to show in philosophy classes if you're ever talking about the Madonna horror pair or no, opposite
Uh
spectrum.
yeah.
Yeah.
Were you going to say paradigm?
Paradigm. Yes, that's what.
Okay.
Cuz like I feel like people talk about that about like you're either
Mhm.
Madonna, you're either the Virgin Mary, or
Mhm.
you are a whore, and there is nothing in between.
And still to this day, there's no allowance for in between. Look at how they crucified Samantha Jones on Sex and the City. You know what I mean? Like that was released in 1998 and ran until 2006 and they still just I don't know, didn't understand her character. The other thing that I thought was really interesting about Winona Charlotte, the character Charlotte
Mhm.
was um her fascination with Catholicism.
Right.
Even though mom repeatedly says we're Jewish, but we don't really practice. And
So,
I
do you
and
know
I go ahead.
I have a funny connection. My mother over Christmas told me that when she was Charlotte's age or
Mhm.
younger, because I guess Charlotte is 18 in the movie, or at least that's what she tells the doctor, but we will get to that triggering
Oh my
scene.
god, that scene.
Um, so anyways, when my mom was a preteen or a young girl or whatever, she read one book about a Jewish family and she decided that that Jewish family was cool.
Mhm.
And therefore, she asked her dad, "Why can't we be Jewish?" And he goes, "Because we're Christians. We're just Croatian Christians. That's who we are." And she's like, "Not into it." So that made me giggle watching Mermaids this go around, watching her just like fiercely
Being
want to be a saint.
Yeah, and and just the way she unpacks some of the things about Catholicism, I didn't realize until just now, or not just now, but within the last 6 or 7 months of my life, and really coming to head with this film, just how scary the concept of the
Mhm,
Immaculate Conception is,
mhm.
because she has no idea that kissing won't get her pregnant, and we know this. Like this is a
Right.
running joke within in movies all the time and television all the time with kids who don't understand sex because we don't talk about it. We don't have education about it, blah blah. Um but the genuine and actual fear she feels because she's kissed a boy and now she must be pregnant because Mary didn't do anything and
She didn't
she
do
got
anything.
pregnant.
She was just
Like that's
around.
horrifying.
It is horrifying, and then you layer on top when she's in her manic episode and she steals Cher's car and drives away, she screams out the window, "I want a life that is exciting and vibrant," or something, and I
Yeah,
was like, "Oh, because all of the saint scare stories, especially saintly women stories, terrifying.
right.
Burned at the stake, beheaded,
Yeah.
all of it." I was like, "So she also wants to be a saint, not just to be like holy and godly and to have some sort of like structure, but she
Mhm.
wants to be a saint because she also feels like that's the only way she can be exciting without being a hoe like her mom."
Right. Even though her mom is just trying to survive, she's not really a hoe. She's just playing the game that she was told she had to play to survive.
My resounding note through this entire movie was Cher was not that bad of a mom. It's like she
Really? Truly?
I was
Oh, so
like,
your worst crime is because you pick up and relocate every year? Like,
right.
okay, army brats have the same experience.
I was on honestly, I was like, she doesn't even pick on Charlotte that much for the
Yeah.
Catholicism thing. She just
Yeah.
like rolls her eyes and walks away from it. And she's like, just so you know, we're Jewish. And then, like, when she moves to Greek mythology, because all of us weird girls have our Greek mythology era, um, Cher's like, we're not Greek either. So
Yeah.
I guess keep looking.
Doesn't keep trying to figure it out. The other part too that kind of bothered me about the lens that we see this film in some ways when it comes to the women was like you said, just how bad all the women are. And
Yeah.
the hypercharge of Charlotte's sexualization. Like, in listening to Pod Meets World today, I realized that maybe that is some people's truth. In reality, it wasn't mine. I was always boy crazy, but it wasn't like at 14, I wasn't like, oh my God, I need to make out with a boy.
And I think when I was younger, the running commentary in her head, how we hear each one of her intrusive thoughts,
Mhm.
was funny because
Yeah.
it is funny. Like, it's funny for like Winona Ryder to have never even considered looking at a boy,
Yeah.
and one hot to trot 26-year-old recluse named Joe shows up, and she's like, I don't know. I can only think about taking off his pants. I don't even know what's going to be there when I do it.
Right. But I guess it's more like is that our innate desire to be nude? Because, with the I like to call, the Christian stories that we were
The
told as
Christian
children
stories.
and being naked in the Garden of Eden. I don't know, you know what I mean? It's like one of those things where I'm just like, I don't even know how I ever thought those things as a child, if I ever thought those things as a child. I just never like the whole I don't know. I don't
Well,
know what I'm trying to
eh,
say. It's
yeah.
always so interesting to me when I learn about when other people had their sexual awakening because I grew up in a very repressed household.
So my parents tried to ignore the fact that sex existed, but also would let me read and watch whatever the hell I wanted.
Right. So
So
you had all this exposure from
yeah,
literature and pop culture.
I remember being a horny preteen. Like, I remember being like a horny little gremlin and just like, reading books and being like, this is what sex is like, and it's brilliant and it's lovely, and I cannot wait to do it. And that's why there's an entire episode dedicated on my podcast to losing my virginity and like literally trying to give it away to the highest bidder. Like, who's coming over?
See, and that's
Who's
not
doing this?
that wasn't my experience. And I got a lot of very heavy-handed messaging about like you need to be careful about who you give it to. And once you give it away, you can't have it back. And the consequences are yours to bear and yours alone. Like it wasn't ever, this presented as this magical experience that you can enjoy with. So even though I'm watching, television of the 90s and there's all this comedy around sex and whatever, there's still this very heavy-handed church. I mean, they had fucking
Mhm.
purity ceremonies for crying out loud. Like
Listen,
it
we
was
need to
like,
find one movie that has like a purity dance, like a purity ball where you marry
have you
your
seen
dad.
Saved?
Oh, yes, that's exactly what we do.
when
I love Saved.
when Saved came out and I watched it, I was like, holy shit. I thought I
Another
was the only one who went through a private school experience, private religious school experience like this.
Listen, this is why when we watched This Is Us and you told me you didn't think Mandy Moore was a great actress, I got mad because I'm thinking of How to Deal and Saved and A Walk to Remember Mandy Moore of my youth. And even just like Lana from The Princess Diaries, just singing her little stupid Cupid song. I'm like, Mandy can do it all, including dementia. Like, give the girl her due.
Yeah.
Mandy's got it. Um, Also, Christina Ricci has always talked like 30-year-old Christina Ricci. There was like
Right.
one line where I was like, put a cigarette in her hand. Just like with the knowledge of like kings that came from Atlantis, Christina Ricci, that's how she talks.
Right. I didn't realize she started acting so young either. Like I knew she was like a quote child actor,
Mm-hmm.
but like I'm thinking,
So cute. She's
now and
so
then
pure.
and Casper and what else was she
Yeah.
in where she was younger-ish? I don't know.
I don't know. I love her to pieces. I'm a huge Christina Ricci nerd. I love Yellow Jackets. I will watch anything that Christina Ricci and Winona Ryder.
I
Like,
was gonna ask you what your favorite Christina Ricci is.
what's my favorite Christina Ricci?
I don't know.
Now and Then Christina Ricci.
I
Ramona.
I think I agree.
Yeah. I wasn't like a huge Casper lover. Like, we watched it a lot and we
Oh,
all
I
got
thought Devin Sawa was so cute.
listen, I haven't gotten bold enough to tell Devin Sawa that he needs to be on the show to talk to us about Wild America.
Oh my god. And I just think he's adorable, and, like, he's not some weirdo either. Like, I
No,
follow him on or I was following him on Twitter. I don't open Twitter anymore, and I was just like, you seem like a solid dude."
he's a great man. Um, no, we all got horned up for Casper turning into Devon Sawa, and then I'm like, should I be having sex with ghosts like in all of the Anne Rice books? I
Oh
also
my
read a
god.
series by Meg Cabot called the Mediator series where she was trying to fuck ghosts and she was like 15 and I was like, should I just like give up on corporeal boys and try to fuck ghosts? Maybe they'll like me.
Maybe, and this just in, Mermaids is Christina Ricci's, first feature film.
Cute as a button.
Cute as a
Cute
button.
as a button. Let's talk
And
about
then oh, The Addams Family. I guess, okay, yeah, The Addams Family. I mean,
Can
she
I
was, like,
say
10. Go
I'm
ahead,
gonna
sorry.
say it. I'm gonna say it right now. I didn't like the Wednesday show.
Oh, I
I didn't like
haven't watched it.
I think that the Addams Family is truly only charming as a unit. You don't wanna watch them solo because then it's weird, because then it's not all of them. Then it is literally just Wednesday saying bummer things all the
'Cause
time.
it was designed to be an ensemble, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
they are the Addams Family.
Mhm. I haven't
So
watched it, so I don't have an opinion.
I missed the entire family the entire time. I was like,
Aw.
you know what would make this show great if Morticia and Gomez were in it more.
Well, and I love how much Morticia and Gomez just loved each other.
Yes,
Like, it was
yes.
so refreshing to be like they didn't have that sitcom quibble bullshit of, like, my wife is annoying and my husband's a knucklehead. They
The
were just,
Addams
like,
Family is a
genuinely
sexy
in love.
show.
Yeah.
It's a sexy show, and if you take out Morticia and Gomez, there's no more sexy, and I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I'm not interested.
Which is why
After
you didn't like the Wednesday Addams show.
after all of that, after everyone threw their fits over what's her name and what's his face playing Morticia and Gomez,
Oh, Catherine Zeta-Jones and who was the guy?
I never know his name.
I gotta go ahead, keep
But I was
talking.
a huge Catherine Zeta-Jones, rom-com fan as a child too, because
Oh, I
again, I was
love
unsupervised.
oh, I love her. She
Oh,
was amazing in High Fidelity.
yes. Also, this Mermaids movie has the sexiest soundtrack I've ever seen, and I was like,
Oh,
"Is this movie why I know every word to Peggy Lee's Fever?"
oh, excuse me, Angelica Houston. What didn't Catherine Zeta-Jones play Morticia?
In the new Wednesday show.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, in the movie with Christina Ricci, it's
Yeah, it's
Angelica Houston.
Angelica Houston.
I got confused.
Um, also,
Oh, yeah, the
I
soundtrack slaps. Sorry to
yeah,
keep I was
I
just
am
confirming details, you
so
know
I
how I
am
am.
literally convinced that my mom did use this as a blueprint to raise me because there's nothing that my mom loves more than to throw a bunch of frozen appetizers in the oven and be like, "It's fun dinner."
Yeah.
I even made a dip.
Oh, that's cute. That's interesting. My mother was very we sat down at a table, we had a meal. Like that family that
Mhm.
Charlotte stumbles upon because the car
Yeah,
runs out of gas finally.
that
I
poor
was like,
manic
"Oh,
family.
that's my family."
Um, no, like my mom's not a very good cook. Is like the thing. Like she's not a good cook. Like
Oh.
she tries her best, but then like diet culture gets the best of her, and then she'll be like, "What about California cauliflower crust pizza?" And I'm like, "No one fucking wants that. That's like no one wants it. I don't want
Oh.
squash spaghetti. I want real spaghetti.
I
Thank you.
do okay, I do love squash spaghetti and
I want
zucchini
noodles."
lasagna. I do love those things, but I also love I feel like zucchini lasagna is still a nod to Italia, you know? It's still just not as heavy, but I do love to make lasagna. I make my sauce from scratch.
Also, my mom one time my uncle made fun of me in the car because I didn't know that it wasn't normal to sing every time a song was playing that you
What?
knew.
It's totally normal to sing every time a song comes on
So
the radio.
we're in the car, and my uncle and my aunt are very silent people, and my cousins are little because it's my mom's youngest brother.
Mhm.
And he's driving me back to either my house or he picked me up to take me to my grandma's something. It's a long car drive. And I unconsciously am singing every song I know to the radio because that like is
Who doesn't do that?
I do it at the grocery store
Yeah.
because and like that kitchen scene at the end was when Showtime decided that my picture needed to be shitty. And I'm like, this is my favorite scene.
Showtime. Get your shit
Showtime.
together.
Because that's how one year my mom bought me for Christmas the Horse of a Different Color album from
Nice.
Big and Rich because it had that song Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy.
Mhm.
Again, I'm like 12 or 13, and my mom's like, you know what our favorite song should be as a family? Save a Horse,
Save a
Ride a
horse, ride
Cowboy.
a cowboy. I
Let's
mean,
all
it's
bump and grind.
kind of good advice though, depending on the
Like,
cowboy.
she's like, and we knew word for word the entire album. She bought it because she thought that it was funny that I knew all the words to that song and it made my dad mad. She also taught me all of the words to Meatloaf's Paradise at a by the Dashboard Lights, and then my grandma got embarrassed when I performed it at a cousin's wedding.
Oh, wow.
The DJ noticed that I knew all of the words, so he just handed me a microphone. I'm
Why
not gonna
not?
not take the microphone.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
again, I'm a 13-year-old singing about, like, 17-year-olds fucking by the light of their dashboard in a car.
You know what? We did do karaoke one time. What's that Charlie XCX song? I can hear it in my head. That's not helpful to you. But a little girl got on stage and was basically like singing a song about how she wanted to like
Yeah, I think kids
and
singing dirty
I
songs is
literally
hilarious.
everybody, but this is like an 8-year-old. So like in public. So like it's like one of the only karaoke places in town.
Mhm.
So everyone in the room just got quiet and like really
Well,
uncomfortable.
you don't become a 12-year-old who can perform Paradise by the Dashboard Lights beat by beat surprisingly at your cousin's wedding unless you were an 8-year-old performing that song in the car.
The difference here is that you were in like controlled environments. This was in a very
Yeah.
public
Don't
place.
take your kids to bars.
And it was a bar, and I was like, "How are they getting away with this?" And then it turns out that before 10, it's all ages. After 10, you have to be over 21. So the mom brought the child in before 10, and the person that I was with, ironically, and I say ironically because you're just kinda like, but you actively cheat on your husband all the
Mhm.
time, but you're uncomfortable with this.
With this, the 8-year-old living
Whatever.
her blitz.
Yeah, like, she was so upset that she just would, like, start just, like, talking it
Oh
was
my
anyway,
god.
it was not a fun night.
Also, my mom stressed me out too much that I didn't learn to drive until I was 17.
Oh, I was 19.
And I wrote down, I was like, "Shall we share our learning how to try drive trauma?" Because my dad let me drive into a ditch and then told me like a really deep ditch,
That's
like a
scary.
deep forested ditch. He
Yeah.
let me turn into a ditch, didn't try to be like, "Hey, Natalie, it's a little wide," or "Hey, Natalie, you're cutting the curb a little close." Nothing. Just sat there silently,
Oh my god.
allowed me to like get the car like this into a ditch, and then proceeded to tell me, "Figure it out." Because what if
No,
I
that's
wasn't
not
here?
no, that's not how you teach somebody how to do
I
something so
got
they can figure it out when you're not there.
yeah, I burst into tears and got out of the car. I burst into tears and I got out of the car and I was like, "We're not that far from home, I'll walk."
Honestly, I'm not okay with that. That
And
makes me
then
really upset.
so then it was my mother's turn to teach me how to drive because my father made me cry one too many times. So then my mom was the opposite of Cher, where she wanted me to be signaling like 2 miles ahead. She'd be like, "Do you see the car? Do you see?" I was like, "All of those cars are parked, mom. We haven't
Yeah.
left the subdivision." I immediately just stopped. I was like, "I just won't drive."
See, so my parents didn't even bother. They just hired somebody to teach me how to drive.
Oh, I took driver's ed because I think you have to in Indiana to get your license.
If you're under a certain age, if you're under 18, you have to do behind the wheel training with a professional
Mhm.
company. I don't know about other states though.
And then my
But
parents get
over 18, I was over 18 when I got my license, and my parents were still like, "We're hiring somebody to teach you how to drive."
honestly, they should've call one of my uncles, call one of those clear-headed Croatian men to come and spend the weekend with us and teach me how to drive, because they have taught everyone how to drive at 8 years old
Yeah.
in cornfields
Yeah.
and vacant parking lots. So call one of them up and just be like, "Can you sit in the car with
Yeah.
Natalie while she cries behind the wheel and tells her it's gonna be okay?"
She
Then my
cries.
family then my family is inconvenienced that I don't know how to drive. So then at every family function, they bring it up. "Can you believe this one? Old maid over here
Ugh.
refuses to learn how to drive." I go, "Because you guys are traumatizing."
Yeah, I
Maybe
hate that.
maybe we shouldn't let 16-year-olds learn how to drive. Like, it just feels very volatile for all of us.
And it's different in every state, right? Because Ohio, you had to be older. Well, I don't know if this is still true. Oh, no, New Jersey. I don't know if this is still true, but when we were visiting Ohio for a family event, because I have family in Ohio,
Mhm.
um, and my cousins from New Jersey, like we all came in. So my cousins from New Jersey were annoyed because my brother could get his permit at 15, and they were like, "We can't do that. We had to wait until 17 because of like some state law or something." I don't
I
know.
side with that state. Maybe, like, the age of, you know, consent and all of it, it should just be 25. It
Did I
should
ever
just
tell
be
you this story where I was at a bar one night for a private event? There was like 75 people there, and 3 or 4 of us were like 18 or
Mhm.
19. We were legal adult age when we got our driver licenses. So they did a casual poll. How many people have a DUI? Literally everybody who had their license at 16 has had a DUI. All of us who did not get our license until adulthood were like, "We're cool. We didn't have a DUI."
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. It's because you've been driving too long and you're too comfortable. Um, and then the reputation, because this movie deals greatly into how one thing will make your reputation just
Yeah.
go off the rails. Then the reputation in my family became that I was the bad driver because I didn't
Oh.
like practicing. And then it's like anytime you have a kerfuffle in the car is because you're the bad driver.
Yeah.
So now I refuse to drive people places because I was like, "You don't wanna get in the car with me. I'm the bad driver."
I always preface it with things like, even though my parents made me do behind the wheel, my dad was the bulk of the like, "Let's get in the car and practice," because you have to have so many
Mm,
hours before they let you take your license test, right?
yeah,
And, so now when people get in the car with me, I'm always like, "Cop taught me how to drive, let's go."
that's yeah.
Enter at your own risk.
Also, during my driver's ed test, during the driving portion,
Mhm.
it came to they told you sometimes you have to parallel park and sometimes there's not time for it, so they don't make you
Oh,
do it.
so you drove real
And
slow so you wouldn't have to?
I tried, and then he was like, "Oh, look, a perfect place to parallel park." And I was like, "Fuck
No.
me." And I just looked at the man and I was like, "Hi, I need you to know that my parents chose to not teach me how to parallel park because they're selfish. And could you just walk me through it?" And I
Yeah.
still can't parallel park to this day. I have a
Oh,
backup
man.
camera. People make fun of me. They're like, "Natalie, you should be able to parallel park. You have a backup camera."
I
And I'm
actually
like, "But
think
I
it's harder
can't."
with the backup camera. I don't use mine. I only use my backup camera to make sure I'm like like I can stay where I'm at once I've like positioned myself.
Also, so the purity complex in this movie. So like
Mhm.
Winona Ryder is on her way to sainthood, the Virgin Madonna, until her mother was like, "I don't care if you fuck that 26-year-old." I wrote down, "Yikes, I didn't know he was 26. I thought it was like 16 candles where he had just
No.
graduated or
No,
something."
he is like full
He's a
ass
full
adult.
grown man. He's had an entire live-in girlfriend who's
Yes.
left town.
Yes. Yeah. Who so you know, and the rumors around his live-in girlfriend, did he get her pregnant? There
Oh,
might be a
yeah.
little Joe Jr. running around.
And
And that
he's
gets in her head, and then that contributes to her, like, psychosis about being pregnant.
And I'm like, "Hey, Cher, maybe we cool it on having Winona be so, like, happy and gun ho and
Mhm.
kind to the recluse who worked every job in town and yet cannot speak to anybody.
Yeah, yeah.
Joe was my
Yeah,
original sad boy. It's like, "Oh, you should fall in love with a sad boy because then sad boys aren't sad anymore."
'cause you make them happy.
Yeah.
Mm. I'm always gonna call him Jake Ryan. I honestly didn't realize he had done I thought he had only done one movie.
I think
Like,
this
I
might
knew he
be
had done,
his
like, a
last
handful of
one.
movies, but I
Yeah.
thought that 16 Candles was his only, like, big one.
I'm not saying that Mermaids is a big movie. I don't think anyone but me could honestly walk into a room and be like, "Let's discuss the plot of
The
Mermaids." It's
Mermaid.
just a movie that my mother loved, and therefore we watched it all the time. And
That's
I
so
do
int
love this movie. And I do think it, like, really highlights the complexities of,
Mhm.
like, women living together in general,
Yeah.
and the way that women are pitted up against one another. I was like, when she was putting on her mom's makeup and dress or whatever, I was like, "Does she try to fuck Lou? Is that where this movie is going?" And I just forgot. Does she try to fuck Lou?
My
Because
worst Go ahead,
her mom kissed,
Joe.
Joe, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "We don't need to up the ante by trying to get Lou to molest you." Like, we
Yeah,
don't gotta.
I was like, "Please don't." I really don't want Lou to turn into some kind of bad guy because he's such
No.
a good guy, and I really like okay, so when Cher freaks out about how close Lou is getting to her girls, like,
Mhm.
that's such a real moment because you get so comfortable and used to the environment being just you and your children
Mhm.
that anytime somebody else sort of gets involved, obviously it shifts the dynamics and all these things, but there's a real fear because like, will your kids be honest with you if they don't like this person?
Right.
And you know, here's the scene where where he does this amazing, incredible thing for these girls, building like the underwater or whatever,
That
and they're
I'm
just
currently in.
yes, and they're just having this, like, there are bio dads who aren't even that good, you know, and so
Right.
Cher picks a fight with him, and it breaks my heart, but also at the same time, it's like self-defense in a way because what's his emotional investment? These aren't his kids. He can pick up and leave because if the people who gave her these children can pick up and leave, then a man who isn't
Yeah.
related biologically can pick up and leave.
Well, and I'm a sicko who grew up in stranger danger culture, so my first thought when a guy gets attached to my single friend's kids is like, "What's your fucking deal? Why are you so
Right.
attached to my friend's kid?"
Right. I mean, we weren't even allowed to spend the night at friends' homes if mom and or dad had a live-in boyfriend and or like slash or girlfriend.
Mhm.
Like that's how serious my parents were about like stranger danger and like how close it is to proximity of the person who does do harmful things to children because
Right.
everyone thinks it's going to be some like
Some guy in a
weirdo
van
off of
named
the
Joe,
street. Yeah. But it's really just like it's like an uncle or someone's boyfriend
the guy
or
that
what
drives
have
your
you.
school bus.
Mhm. And then so that was like a thing I had to like work through myself when I became a parent because then it turns into like all I heard when my child was very, very young, all I could hear was my parents. Well, and they were actively saying this shit. It wasn't just like it stopped
Mhm.
because I grew up. It was like, now you
Yeah.
have a beautiful child. So here we're going to remind you of the horrors and dangers of the world and the things that could happen to him. And you're just like, I need all the noise to stop so I know how to manage and navigate this, please, because parenting is hard enough as it is.
Well, yeah, and I like, throughout the entire movie because, uh, what's his name? Gil? What's his name? Lou. Because Lou is
It's
a
like Gil. Who the fuck is
because I was like,
Gil?
"It's not Joe, Joe's the one that fucks Winona."
Yeah, Lou.
Because Lou is such a gem, I just kept reminding myself, like, we know that he doesn't turn out to be a creep. We know that
Right.
he doesn't turn out to be a creep. He is a very nice man. Thank God that we already know that he's a very nice man,
Bob
because had
Hoskins.
we have made this movie in the millennial age, I bet you it would have been a back to school special about how mom's boyfriends are creeps.
Yeah, because we can never allow for men what is I mean, I understand, you know,
Yeah.
you actively are in the camp of all men are trash. I recognize and understand that. I also find it very frustrating that we have very few positive male representation roles in media because
Yeah.
it's like, why can't we have more of that, so that way it's like, because if we're learning how to behave from pop culture and
So are
movies, and
they.
so are they. So if all they're seeing is violence perpetuated, then like, what is, like, that's not having a positive impact. We need more Luz in the world.
Yeah. No, I remember having two of the two guys off of well, JD has a new podcast now, but when JD and Ghost came on my podcast, like we were talking about pop culture in reference to like what women did you have crushes on
Mhm.
when you were a kid from pop culture, and what did that make you think that like dating women was going to be like? Because I'm thinking of
Right.
like Heidi from Tool Time, and like we
Right.
grew up in a ridiculous age of just like sexualizing women because someone's gotta, so the men tune in and we
Right.
make money.
Right.
And I remember just being like, well, how do you guys feel about how you're portrayed as like lechers in the fucking, like, every teen show has
Mhm.
some creepy boy up against the locker pushing it a little too far.
Yeah. What did they say?
You know what?
We need to
Everyone
go
would
back
have
and
to
just listen
revisit.
to the last
We would just have
episode.
to revisit that episode.
Yeah,
But
I
I
think
do like, again, I will always say that the patriarchy and misogyny is everyone's problem. It's just not my
yeah.
problem. It's men's problem. Why
Yeah,
am
it's
I
hard.
scared of men? Because I've been conditioned to be scared of men because my go-to is you're scary.
Right. It is harmful for everybody, and that's the thing, and the men who are different and want different things or changing, who don't fit the norm of the patriarchy, are, victims too of harassment and ridicule, and that's just not okay, because
It's not okay.
it needs to be oh, it just needs to be okay for all of us to be varying degrees of whatever, because the system shouldn't require that Cher has to be a woman who needs to jump from man to man to man to survive.
Also, I didn't think that she was way out of left field or cold-hearted or that she even treated Lou that badly when she was like, when she had that meltdown and
Mhm.
he was like, "You're cold," and all of this, and like, "You never even think about us." I go, I feel like we're just demonizing Cher
Right.
for literally being careful.
Right.
Women aren't given the luxury of being careless, but we're also not given the luxury to be careful.
Right. Right. It is hard because you do have to again, you have that in your mindset of men are bad, they're going to touch your children inappropriately. How do you
Mhm.
navigate? And sometimes people don't want to wait to find out whether or not you really aren't a harmful person.
Right.
Like, I've put in all this work. Why are you still resistant? It's like, it's not resistance. It's
Right,
getting
bro.
comfortable. Like, it can take people 30 fucking years to realize their parents shouldn't be a part of their lives. I'm allowed to take a long time to figure out whether or not I want you in my life.
No kidding. It's ridiculous. I was like, I really don't think that Cher's acting left field out of during this entire movie at all. I go, she's pretty chill about the kid wanting to be a nun. She takes the little one to swim practice all the time, even though it's boring. She goes to the fucking baseball hall of fame. You think I'm going to the baseball hall of fame? No.
I want to go to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
You told me that they took down the Peaches stuff. So what am I going to look at the baseball hall of fame?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I still want to go. I grew up watching baseball.
Like, they took down the shit I'd care about. It
Yeah.
was a special exhibit for those special 4 years that we let women play
I
baseball.
want to play baseball.
Um, but yeah, it's just, and then I truly think, because I was thinking about it today, I was like, why did Cher just sign off with her dating Joe? And I was like, I don't think she meant to. I think she saw that Winona Ryder got like a little antsy in her pantsy over Joe. And
Mhm.
she was like, now would be the age, Charlotte, where we could talk about you dating. I don't think
Yeah.
she gave her the green light to go fuck a grown man in a bell tower.
Well, and I think that's why she leaned into the kiss, like,
Yeah.
as a because she never, like you said, she wasn't really giving her permission. It was more of like, I'm teasing you because you have some
Yeah.
feelings in your pants. And I think that's why she kissed him, because it was more of a, we know that you shouldn't, we both know that you're not going to do anything. But that was after, right? Was that after?
No,
That was
so
before.
the New Year's Eve kiss happens, and then Charlotte declares war
Yes.
on
Okay.
Mrs. Fletcher. Is that they only call her by her
Flax.
last name? Yeah, Mrs. Flax.
Yeah.
um. So, anyways, I I was like, oh my gosh, I go, this is why you have to be careful about what you say to kids, especially a kid who has taken every word of the Bible as truth. You can just look at a kid and be like, date Joe. I dare you. Because then that kid's gonna be
Yeah.
like, fine.
Mommy said it was fine. I can do
Mommy
it,
said it was fine.
and not understand the nuance. And she hasn't, for better or worse, her social skills are probably not the greatest because they've moved around a lot. So she probably doesn't understand the teasing of like, ooh, you think this boy is cute. I'm gonna dare
Mm,
you.
I dare you. I dare you to do something about
I
it.
triple dog dare you.
I triple dog daring you. Also, I would love to have the attitude of that one girl who was in the bathroom just giving like graphic play by play of
Oh my
oral
gosh,
sex.
I know.
I was like, number one, this is like the 60s, the early 60s. I was like, the
Yeah,
gall of this young girl just in
right.
the bathroom, just being like, and then he moaned and I loved it. I was like, oh, you're the reason why all of these girls. Oh, and then so the drowning. So Charlotte's hooking up with Jake
Joe, yeah.
Joe in a bell tower because she's drunk on hooch and
Just like her mama.
dressed like her mama. And number one, like I was a visceral, like sexy sex scene, and I'm like, oh, now
It
I'm
was
even more
so
uncomfortable.
graphic.
Yes.
I couldn't believe how much they show. And then I was like, how old was it Winona Ryder when they filmed this movie? So I had to look up what year she was born and then kind of do the math of like, okay, so maybe they filmed in 88, 89. So she was technically an adult, but she's playing a child.
Yeah. And Katie drowns. Little kid also drunk on hooch. I love in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, your kids just accidentally got drunk and no one knew.
I'm sorry, my lights are.
Oh, my lights are doing weird stuff today, too.
Is my house cursed or something?
I don't know. I think electricity is weird and volatile.
No wonder everybody was scared of it over 100 years ago.
Good Lord.
The lights just went out on their own. And then I
My,
had a
o-
moment of like, oh, the power's out. No, the power's not out because my ring light's still on.
yeah,
Oh, but that's plugged into the wall. Whatever.
who knows?
I'm gonna turn on a backup light just in case it happens again.
So Katie drowns because she's also drunk on hooch because no one's monitoring children. It's the 60s. and the and the nuns, these beautiful pure nuns who just like get her out of the river or
Okay,
whatever.
but here's the thing. I was confused on how the nuns knew she was there.
I think one of them had a lantern. Maybe they do night rounds.
I was wondering, I was like, do they do night patrols? Like, is that a
I don't know what
thing?
nuns do. What do nuns do all day?
They pray, don't
What
they?
do what do nuns do all day?
I'm
Maybe it
pretty
was moonlight prayer time or something, and they were walking from different points of the monastery.
convent.
Convent. Well, she called it a monastery,
Oh,
I
she
thought.
called it a monastery?
Yeah. I think I don't know how they're different.
A monastery is monks, no?
Oh. Maybe she called it the convent then. But
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't
A
know.
lot of
I don't
religious
know.
shit I had to block because of trauma. It's fine.
So, anyways, these beautiful nuns get Christina Ricci out of the river. And my only note of this traumatic drowning scene is, oh God, Charlotte is always going to connect sex to this
Uh-huh.
awful moment in her life, and she will never have an orgasm.
Primed for becoming a nun.
Yeah, she will never have an orgasm. This poor kid, because
Yeah.
all she knows, and what else? Oh, it was Dimension 20. So Dimension 20 is currently doing scary fairy tales for their
Okay.
campaign.
Okay.
And Emily Ashford is playing Little Red Riding Hood. And she made a point last week or the week before. I don't know. I rewatched a bunch of them this weekend to re up on my knowledge of what had actually gone on. But she made the point to saying that, like, well, yeah, when adults were in the fairy tales, it was get married happily ever after. When
Mhm.
the kid was at the center of the fairy tale, it was you fucked up. Here's your punishment.
Yeah, it's a cautionary tale.
It's a cautionary tale. Pinocchio lied once and had to be a donkey. Like,
Yeah.
because Pinocchio also had that meltdown where he's like, Pinocchio would like to know why other people can make mistakes and that's fine. And there's forgiveness and grace and whatever. And then whenever he makes a mistake, literally, we're getting eaten by a whale, or I'm turning into a donkey,
That
or
was
my dad's
gross.
getting hurt. Like, and then
Yeah.
you got Emily over here playing Little Red Riding Hood, and she's like, "No, it's for me too. Like, I made one mistake, and now I am a werewolf. Like, none of this makes sense or feels right or true." And she's like, "I've just decided that all of the grown-ups are wrong and the morals are wrong, and fuck all of it." And I was like, I kind of like that.
I do too. I do
Be-
too.
because think about, like, there's such a grayness to the term wrong
Right. Correct.
that, like, and then you have poor Charlotte with this, like, very Catholic mindset of sin means hell,
Right.
avoid sin,
Right.
and now she's like, now she has to grasp on whether or not God will still love her, or even if she, like, because now I'm like, well, God, who knows? Like, maybe she moved on to Greek mythology because she's like, well, God's gonna be done with me, so I guess I'll just move on to
I
the
need to move
next.
on. I think your point highlights really well just how subjective right and wrong is.
Yeah,
Because what's right and wrong in Christianity isn't always true in other religions, as we see unfold with Roe v. Wade being knocked down and the
yeah.
Jewish community spearheading its, challenging that. And aside from that too, like there's what's the movie with Dave Bautista coming out?
Oh, the
The M.
cabin.
Night Shyamalan, yeah.
Yeah, I wanna
Just
see that real bad. Knock at the door or something, knock at the
something like
cabin.
that, and it's like, I've seen the trailer several times because you get hijacked in the movie theater and you get forced into it, and again,
Yeah,
that's also a thing where it's like, his whole thing is like, "We have to sacrifice one of you for this thing to happen." So in their minds, that's what's right,
that's what's right.
but in my
Um,
mind, I'm like, "Sacrificing is bad. Please don't
Ginny
sacrifice a human life, like,
Ginny
what?"
and Georgia also struggle with that, and then, like, what's his name? What's the dad's name? The hot dad's name?
Zion, so hot.
Zion's new girlfriend is like, "Well, the reason why I can be a defense attorney is because right and the law is usually gray, and sometimes there are circumstances."
Yeah, I mean, I hate the whole concept of like you must follow every law to the T. Well, for my community, the Black community, that meant we weren't allowed to vote
Yeah,
until the middle of the 20th century. So if people had sat aside and just quietly abided by those laws and restrictions, Black people would not have the right to vote in the way that we do today. So she's when people talk about following the law, you're just like, I always tell my kid, follow the laws that are right or follow the
yeah.
laws that make sense. Unless if, no, that's not what I say. I say, follow the law unless it violates your personal rights.
In the very This is their very first campaign where it's like you don't even know if you're gonna get a following or a fan base or whatever, and people usually, like, keep it pretty clean, keep it pretty cut. Brendan Lee Mulligan made a character say out loud, and remember, kids, laws are just for the weak willed, and it's how the government keeps you down. And I was like, ugh. I
Ooh.
love I love Brendan Lee Mulligan is the original feral rebel of my soul. Like, I will live my entire life as feral as he acts.
I love that. I love that. But it does make and I don't think it makes it complicated. A lot of people want to say it's complicated, but I don't think it truly is because I think if all of our needs are met as humans,
Mhm.
shelter, food, transportation is a basic right now because nobody lives within walking distance of anything
Right.
anymore, right? Um Medical care, that kind of stuff. So if all of our basic needs are being met, people generally can live in harmony. It's when you peel back the layers of oppression and realize like people's needs aren't being met in such extreme degrees that sort of breed these sort of quote
Yeah.
heinous behaviors, because now it's like, well, I have to survive. So if my
I just
only way to
realized we're
survive,
not using my good camera.
oh, whoopsie.
Whoopsie.
So, like, if my only means of survival is selling drugs,
Yeah.
or I could go to McDonald's and make $15 an hour. We fundamentally know $15 an hour is not enough money for a person to live and survive in this country. So,
Well,
like, if I can make 150K selling drugs or work at McDonald's because it's quote honorable, but it's also not, because people
it's
who work at
not
McDonald's get demeaned all the time for
all the
working at
time.
McDonald's.
And
Not that I
everyone
would
loves,
actually sell drugs because I'm
yeah,
terrified of going to jail. But I've also lived, in a privileged state because I had the choice of being able to have jobs in that are quote respectable. But what if my folks, I'm the daughter of a black man. What if he had never left the Midwest? What if my grandparents never left the South? What would my options be?
well, and the thing of it is too is like scarcity makes people violent.
Uh-huh.
And even the idea of scarcity makes people violent. Let's take it back to the beginning of the pandemic where people had an
Hoarding toilet
inkling
paper.
that toilet paper might not be available to them.
Which
And
is
then
the
there
most random item to hoard during a fucking pandemic.
and then let's take it back to our childhood. People got violent over whether or not their kid was getting a tickle me Elmo.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? Home Economics. I don't know if you watch that show. It's on ABC. It's on after Elementary. Anyway, one of the characters' children wanted this thing because she's like, "You did this amazing thing. I want to reward you." Blah blah. And he's like, "Cool, I want
Mhm.
this." So her very wealthy brother-in-law is like, "Oh, that's going to be really hard to get. Let's figure this out." So they figure out where to find it, and he's like, "You need to go now. The store opens tomorrow, but you need to go right now to get in line." So she does. And in line, she learns nobody else in line is there to genuinely own the product. They are there to buy it and
And
then
then sell
price
it.
gouge it online.
Yeah.
Because
Welcome to
that's
the
the
Taylor
culture
Swift.
we've bred.
Yeah.
That's the culture we've created intentionally.
So the very idea of Cher kissing the one boy that Charlotte has ever felt connected to, because now it all hangs on him. Like, I'm
Right.
giving up God, I'm giving up religion, I'm
I
giving up
mean,
my
I would
future
give
as
up
a nun.
celibacy for Jake
Right.
Ryan too.
So she's
Maybe before I found out he was not a good
so
guy.
she's hung it all on him in one kiss when JFK died.
Yeah.
And now her mother is taking away the one thing. So she immediately goes, I'll get fucking violent.
Yeah.
I will get fucking violent. I will take over your entire personality because it's scarcity. Everything can literally be rooted back to why are we anxious? Scarcity.
Yeah.
Why are we depressed? Scarcity.
Yeah, when you have uncertainty in a lot of ways, where am I gonna sleep tonight? What am I gonna eat today? How are these things gonna work out? And it's for me, it's breaking that generational trauma.
Mhm.
I don't use that as a leverage with my kid when he needs something. An incident came up a couple months ago. He was parallel parking, tapped somebody's
As you
car.
do.
Yeah, tapped somebody's car. People saw it because he lives in Los Angeles, so it's pretty
Mhm.
obvious. So he left a note because that's what you do, and left his number. I don't even know how long ago this was. He told me when he got home from winter break. So we're talking this had to sometime last year. Today he calls me and he's like, "Mom, you remember the story? They finally reached out." And I was like, "Well, that's bullshit that they took so long to reach out to you. There's no damage, but then until they removed this one thing, there's some
Yeah.
damage and it's going to cost this much money to fix it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll pay for it." And he was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, because why am I going to have an 18-year-old kid who's never had a job? Well, he used to umpire, but still, who's going through, like, I'm not going to put that stress on you to figure out how to pay this. I have the means to do it. I'm going to do it so you can feel focused on your studies." And my parents didn't do that for me. It was very much
No.
like, "You did this, you fucking figure it out." And it's like, "I ain't got no money. Like, how do I figure this out? Like, are you gonna give me a clue? Can I at
Right.
least have like a map to help me figure this out?" Nope. Figure it out. You're an adult now. Figure it out. I hate that mindset. It's so cruel because who's to say you're going to figure it out in a way that's helpful to you in the long
Right.
run?
Yeah. By any means necessary, I guess.
Right? Like, I would rather give him the money than he try because he you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna do something kind in return to me for me or
Yeah.
for someone else.
Because again, when we're living in a community mindset, everyone's needs get met. And then
Mhm.
we don't have reasons to punch one another.
I did ask for, the, what do you call it? When they give you it's the quote. I did ask for a
Oh, the
copy of
quote.
the quote
Like,
so I could
what
pay
is
it.
it? What is,
What is it called? Because I like, it just
yeah.
whatever, like, the situation, whatever, but it's like, yeah, we're gonna handle it. I don't need you to feel stressed out about this situation. I don't want you to come home and take my car keys because 'cause you're so mad
Hmm.
and pull a Charlotte.
Yeah. I will say, for as much as women are demonized through the script and the actions of this movie, in the way that Cher and Winona actually act chemistry wise,
Mhm.
there is like the absence of a mother body shaming her
Right,
child, or
right.
like overly sexualizing her, or like calling her a loser or a nerd or whatever.
Yeah,
Like, again, Cher wasn't that bad of a mom.
right. One of the things I think why your mom probably loves this movie so much is because it does have a vibe to it where you can feel comfort in Cher in a way,
Yeah.
right? Like, the things that she teases Charlotte for are things that are within Charlotte's control.
Hmm.
Like, you can't always control what you look like.
Yeah.
Genetics just happens. And so you can't control what food does to your body, right? And so for her to not body shame her and just kind of like, we're Jewish, right? Like,
Yeah.
that kind of shit. I feel like we would all be better off
We would all be better
if
off.
I know, if the focus was on building a relationship with your child rather than trying to make them fit the mold that you believe they should fit.
Well, and I don't believe that there's any reason to believe that Cher is no less of a good or bad mom, because at the end of the movie, she's screaming, "We're going to do life my way because I'm the adult and
Yeah.
it's my life until it's your life."
Which is true, but I think the way she handles it is in a way where it's like she's acknowledging once you have control of your life, you can have control of your life.
Right.
Whereas I don't know about your experience. Shit, I'm almost fucking 40 and I still am still somebody's still trying to control me as their
Yeah.
child.
Yeah. No, I thought that that was one of the more cathartic parts of the movie, because I'm like, well, yeah, all of our moms are just ladies who had babies.
Mhm.
They're just ladies. Like, it wasn't divine intervention, it wasn't a calling, it wasn't,
Right.
they're literally just women who happen to also get pregnant.
And we learn that Cher wasn't that much older than Charlotte.
Cher was your age when you
When
had
she
your baby.
Mhm, mhm.
You and
And
Cher.
that makes a big difference, and in the lack of knowledge that Charlotte has, we can only assume that, Cher has even less knowledge at that time, 20
Yeah.
years earlier.
No kidding. She said, "He made me feel special for about a minute and a half." I went, "Oh, I've been there."
Yeah.
I have been there. And thank God I willed myself to never have a baby.
Honestly, because
Honestly.
because it is I don't know, it's hard because we don't have conversations, we don't have true and real conversations about what having a family would look like and what that means for you and if you even want one, we just
That
assume.
that doctor wouldn't even tell her what the exam was going to entail before his, I guess it was gloved, who knows? It was a
It
15-second,
he
like,
they I heard the glove go on.
okay.
Yeah.
Before his fingers were inside of her, and I was like, "Well, whoa." I go, "Also, we have to stop perpetuating this myth that there is a physical aspect to virginity. Virginity is fake.
Yes, thank
It's
you.
fake.
Because he was like, "Oh, you're still a virgin." I was like, "You couldn't feel that.
You
You
couldn't feel
don't
that.
know. You don't know."
You don't know. Get your hand out of her."
That was horrible.
Horrifying.
Did you watch Fleischman in Trouble?
No, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm
Okay.
going to.
Well, there's a
Yeah.
similar situation,
Yeah.
and it's horrible, and we should not be treating women this way. This is why men shouldn't be gynecologists.
You heard it here first. But, like, literally, like, didn't even ask her why she was there, didn't introduce himself, didn't anything, just like, glove.
And she's like, "Why am I?" And she's just laying there, legs closed, doesn't understand why she had to get undressed. Like, no one's explaining
She
anything
was
to
like, "I
her.
literally just had 2 questions. I literally just had 2 questions."
Yeah. Even gives a fake name because, again, back to that reputation and what you do and how your reputation impacts your life.
Well, and back to Cher leaving every time the reputation thing was gonna get a little bit dicey. Yeah, no one was kind in the
Mhm.
'60s. That still haunted me when I left college to enter the workforce where it's like, "Well, I don't know if you'll get a job around schools here because, your mom left a job in the middle of the year and that's gonna follow you." And I was like, "Well, maybe I'll change my last name." Like,
Oh, I understand. I mean, I gave my child my last name for a reason.
yeah. It's one of those things where it's like small to small towns talk the most,
Mhm.
and then they blacklist you from everything. The fact that Cher, like, was able to she should never leave that town. She's got Lou, she's got a whole group of, like, sassy women who are on her side, who are
Mhm.
like, "Make out with Joe, but also marry Lou, we don't care."
Yeah, yeah. I really okay, just a moment for Lou. I freaking loved when he first saw her and he was just like, "This is the most beautiful woman."
Cher is the most beautiful woman.
She's fucking
She's
gorgeous.
fucking
But the
gorgeous.
way he's, like, dumbstruck with, like, her charisma, and
Mhm.
then he maintain like, it doesn't go away as
No.
he gets to know her, and even in their fight, he still wants her and wants to be with her.
Their literal sparring, their verbal like, I was like, "Oh, this is why I pick fights." I pick fights because I watched this movie and I was like, "Oh, that's how you flirt, it's hot."
Yeah.
Because, like, they're on the same page,
Yeah, yeah.
and I loved it. I love the way that they talk to one another. I love that he tried to like, he was gonna paint her, and then she's like, "You know you suck at this,
Yes,
right?" He's like, "Yeah, I
and
didn't
then
tell you I was good. I just
and
told
then
you I liked it."
the other part of what I love about their relationship is she's not hung up on the fact that she's a foot taller than him, and
Uh-uh.
neither is he. He doesn't give a rat's that there's a height difference, that she is, that people are gonna question whether or not they should be together because of their
Mhm.
physical differences. It is just, "Holy buckets, I find you attractive," and she's like, "I think you might be kinda cute too," and they
Yeah.
just go for it. It's like a win for everybody who just wants to be loved.
Yeah, it's so cute, and we're in, like, peak Cher, uh, cheekbone era where I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh,
she's
those
so
cheekbones,
gorgeous. Just so
fucking
good.
and that hair." I know my mom tried to copy that hair.
Yeah.
Like,
Just so good.
my mom wanted to be Mrs. Flax.
Mm.
Um, I also think that it's cute that out of one scene of all of them being on all 3 women being on the same page as something, that's what we named the movie after.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just it's so cute. It's a
Yeah.
great movie. Did you like it overall? I didn't realize it was your first time watching it.
Yeah, I did actually really enjoy it, and it made me nostalgic for a time when movies could just sort of exist and tell stories in a way that didn't
Mhm.
have, I don't know, something else involved.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care if there's, like, another message or whatever, but there's something about I've been feeling this way for a while. There's something about the way I remember the '90s being very comforting, and I don't know.
Do you know
There
what
was
it put
there's a
do you
lot of
know
shit in the '90s that was trash, but, like,
I know.
I don't
Do you
know.
know what it put me in the mood for? Immediately, I turned it off and I went, "I wonder if riding in cars with boys is dreamy." I love riding in
I
cars
do
with
too.
boys.
I love that movie too.
That's my
I can't actually watch it with my kid in the house because it triggers lots of
Oh,
things
yeah.
for us.
I love that movie. I think it is Drew Barrymore's best movie,
Yeah.
hands down.
Yeah.
W and, oh, no.
What?
W I don't like that I've forgotten her name, Brittany Murphy.
Oh, yeah, Pretty Mer
It's just a wonderful movie that
Mhm.
should be on our list for this because it's so good.
It's, an adaptation of a book.
I know. I've never read the book.
I've never read
Mermaids
the book
feel
either.
Mermaids feels like an adaptation of a book, but I do not think that it is. It has a very book vibe.
You know, and maybe that's what it is about the 90s and even 80s films and everything prior to, like, let's say 1999.
Mhm.
It's like there's a really big shift in 2000 where it's like after 50 years of television, they finally figured it the fuck out and changed the way it's done.
Yeah.
Because there's still sort of this like literary or like theater vibe that comes from a lot of, s- things that have like these really interesting what am I trying to say? There's still a theater to it.
Yeah.
There's still yeah, theater. There's still
It's very
theater to
yeah.
it, to the
It's
storytelling
theatrical.
and the
Well,
way that it presented to everybody. And yeah, they have a lot of different scenes and a lot of different settings, but at the same time, it still works because you need these sort of anchor spots for the
yeah.
story to work.
We are also fed so many of the same movies over and over and over again. Where in the 90s, I felt like every time I was going to the movies, it was a different story, it was
Yeah.
a different cast.
Even the remakes were felt original, right? Like Father of the Bride felt original. Parent Trap felt original. Like there's just this dedication to like, okay, how do we take this and make it feel like an experience for
Right.
somebody?
I can't think of like the only pair of movies I can even think like run almost so parallel is Anywhere But Here and Where the Heart Is. But I'm like,
Yeah.
I just think that they both have Natalie Portman and Ashley Judd in them. I don't even think that they have the similar stories. I just think that you could buy them as a duo in the
Yeah.
DVD set.
Yeah. I always kind of put them together in my head too.
No. But then
But
we
then
even eventually in the later 2000s, like remember we would have like several years where accidentally the same movie would come
yeah,
out twice, like
Friends with Benefits, No
Friends
Strings
with Benefits
Attached.
and No Strings Attached. I'm like, this is the same
It's
movie.
the
No
same
one talked to
movie.
one another.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I couldn't even tell. Mila Kunis is in one.
Friends with Benefits with Justin Timberlake. That's the
Oh,
one I like better because No
yeah,
Strings
it's the
Attached
better
is kinda
one.
yeah, it's the better one.
And then what's No Strings Attached? Who's in that one?
Ashton Kutcher and Natalie Portman.
I hate Ashton Kutcher.
Sorry. He did a really good job. I just watched this movie called was it called Vengeance? It was written by
No,
BJ Novak. I thought he did a really good job in that film.
I just find him very obnoxious. Which I guess is his whole shtick. I did love Butterfly Effect though. I love a
God,
cheap.
it's been ages since I've seen Butterfly
Oh,
Effect.
oh, does it not make your cut for being too scary? It's supposed to be scary.
I know. Well, so I think I cut off scary stuff around 2004. Well, that's not true. As my child grew, my tolerance for things that are intense and scary decreased.
Okay,
Like
gotcha.
we went and saw The Departed. His father and I were together at the time when that film released.
Mm-hmm.
We saw we saw like a 6 o'clock showing. Girl, I did not sleep for a week after that movie.
All right. Also, I found it very. I'm ready to wrap up.
Okay.
What was your comfort level with this movie?
Overall, I would say I'm very comfortable with it, and it has a good wintry afternoon vibe to it, so it'll
Mm-hmm.
probably make it into my rotation of winter movies.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that it's very much like women are kind of trash. No, but at the same time, there's so much there's so many redeeming qualities about it that you can excuse the fact that whoever wrote this story hates women.
Correct. I am also still very comfy with this movie, despite the fact that a teenager and an adult have an inappropriate moment in a bell tower. I wish I would have never have caught the line where they said he was 26. I physically wrote that down. I go, I wish I had never heard that line.
So the writers were the writer is Dan, and who wrote the novel. It is a novel. Look at
Oh, it
you.
is?
Oh
I'm
my
gonna have to
god.
get it.
Do we need to read this in our book club? Oh my
Maybe.
god.
I would love to know more about Cher in this movie.
And then June Roberts wrote the screenplay, but Richard Benjamin was the director. And I have that theory
Yeah.
that I adopted from my friend, that if a woman writes the screenplay, and men often don't execute it well in
You
terms
heard
of
it
like
here first.
being fem being fem forward.
But I also think that if I was a mother watching it with my 12-year-old, much like my mother did with me, I would have had a conversation with 12-year-old me to be like, that Cher didn't mean that she was going to sign off on Winona dating Joe. Like,
Right.
we need to, because my family is also a very sarcastic family. So it's like, we need to understand
Yeah.
the difference between sarcasm and teasing and us giving you the green light to something.
And I think if it was a female director, she would have done a better job at offering direction to make that clear for the audience.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a man's gonna understand that, because men just
No.
think women are conniving and sexual and will do anything to get ahead, when really they hold all the power. So that's how we have to behave sometimes.
And I think that, like, there is still a conversation to be had when it comes to Charlotte and Joe's relationship, where it's like, do you see how easy it is to pin all my mom used to use Paradise by the Dashboard Lights as that lesson for me. We would get to the
Mm,
part where he's like, "And now I'm praying for the end of time," and she'd turn the radio down and she'd be like, "What did we learn? We learned that they'll tell you anything to get you naked in their car, and then
mhm,
they'll even tell you that they'll marry you, and then you'll
mhm.
make them marry you, and then they'll hate you because 'cause they're
Yeah,
liars."
yeah,
Well, I feel like Cher having that, and I wonder if it happens more fleshed out in a book where Cher sits down and is like, "Let's talk about hanging all of our hopes on one dude named Joe.
yeah, yeah,
One very socially anxious, sad man named Joe."
yeah.
'Cause he is endearing. Like, he gives me, like, Quasimodo vibes, even though he's, like, very good looking. Like,
He's so
he's
handsome.
so handsome, and he's so soft spoken, and I probably also would have tried to sit on his lap on the bus, like,
Mhm, and other places.
and other places. I probably also would have been like, "You know what will make me feel better about John F. Kennedy? May he rest in peace. You dick. You dick." Um,
It's like that scene in High Fidelity in the movie where
yeah.
they at her dad's funeral, they have sex in the car because she's like, "I need to feel something different, and you're right here, so whip it out."
You're right here. So I am still fine with saying that this is one of my favorite movies, because I think that you can have all really, I don't think that we should eliminate iffy things happening in movies. I think that's what we've done, and that's why movies suck now.
'Cause there's no nuance to it.
No.
Like, I don't know if we've forgotten how, or if we're scared to have
Yeah.
the nuance, because the internet is so quick the internet is so black and white and so quick to say, "This is bad, this is wrong, you're awful," but no one's willing to have that conversation of
Mhm.
like, "Hey, maybe that's a nuance." Like, the new
Okay.
You People, the movie Kenya Burst just released with Jonah Hill, is getting dragged, and I'm just like, I you guys, as the product of a mixed race couple, I just felt like there was a lot of things in here that were great.
I just really did. So I've Because I think before the 26-year-old line, I was like, "Well, what will we talk about?" Because
Yeah.
eventually we're going to get to the point where there's nothing to talk about when it comes to movies. That's
Yeah.
why I think that Marvel does just enough of a good job to make their villains a little bit in the gray, so my
Mhm.
brain still works hard during the movie. And that's why I
Yeah.
sleep during the battles, because my brain doesn't have to work hard during the battles.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can just take my Marvel nap in the middle of the movie.
I can just take my Marvel nap in the middle. Speaking of, Civil War was on last night. That made me
Oh
happy.
god. So, I'm still comfy. I hope that everyone puts Mermaids on their winter list.
Yeah.
I forgot that all of the action happened on New Year's Eve. I was like, "Why is this a January movie?" Oh, literally the climax of the movie is New Year's Eve.
Yeah, yeah, and it feels good. It feels good to be a winter movie. Like, it has everything, and even though it ends in spring, it's still we have the hope of spring towards the end of January, so
I would love for People Magazine to do one of those weird, like, reunited, spotlights on Cher, Winona Ryder, and Christina Ricci to talk about, like, how they feel about this movie now,
You know
especially with it being Christina's first movie.
yeah, and, I'm surprised I was surprised to learn that I don't think they've ever done a movie together since, and I've never
No.
seen them publicly together if that I can recall. So I thought that was very interesting because you know how some people will make movies and then they become friends for life, and
Mhm.
there's just all of this, like, hoopla, and there's no hoopla around them.
You mean h how, like, One Fine Day was so good that Julia Roberts could only kiss George Clooney in movies?
Michelle Pfeiffer was in One Fine Day.
Oh, it was Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah,
I always rewrite it as Julia
because
Roberts.
that's what you wish it was.
I know. One Fine Day, though, is the reason why I think a perfect movie is 90 minutes long.
Well, because it is a perfect movie.
It is. It's a
That
perfect
movie is
movie.
perfect, and I
It's a
love
perfect
movies.
movie.
Carly and I have had this conversation. She talks about how she loves movies that take place in, like, a night or a
Yeah.
day, and I was thinking about that after our conversation. I thought, "Oh my god, actually, I do as well."
Yeah, because it's real tight. It's just
Mhm,
tight.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, because I thought that Winona Ryder and Cher was the winning combo.
Yeah,
I was like, "How did this never happen
happen
again?"
again. Yeah. I
Or
mean, Tom
really
Hanks and Meg Ryan were so good, they did it again 8 years later.
also, like, Winona and Christina Ricci. When Christina Ricci got older, well, then Winona was going through it.
I was having a hard time.
It was her girl interrupted phase. I will always stick up for Winona. We all go feral sometimes.
That's a good movie, though. Girl Interrupted is a real good movie.
Stealing is also just a crime because they wanna punish us for being poor.
Well, she wasn't poor.
She wasn't poor.
But there was a different reason why she was
There was a different
stealing, and
reason. She
somebody should
needed
have gotten
control.
yeah, like, and that's another
Someone should
thing
have
too,
helped
right?
her.
Somebody should have helped her instead of punishing her,
But we don't help people, we just punish women.
specifically women. How dare we try and help women and improve our society? Mm.
Jules, tell people where they can find you.
Hi, friends. I'm Julia Washington, your host of Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous, where we analyze pop culture through the lens of race or gender, and sometimes both. You can find me on Instagram, both under Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous or the Julia Washington, Julia Washington. And it's not that exciting to follow me, I guess. I don't know. Or
What?
you could. It's fun. It's fun. I don't know. I love my Instagram.
We truly need to work on your sales
I
pitch.
know. January is hard because I go through a phase of like, well, nobody really wants to hear from me. People, do they even like me? Like January is a dark, dark month for me.
Let me just look to the right to my vision board that I hung up yesterday
Nice. I'm proud
and
of
just
you.
remind you that your voice counts because you have value. Now I'm literally just pointing at things that are on. Get your groove on with certainty, Jules.
I will.
How
I
are we
will.
supposed to be meeting ladies with that attitude?
I know. I know. Because January's a bitch. It
I
gets
hate
to
January.
me.
What a stupid month. We survived the holiday season just for it to snow and rain at the same time. Why?
Yeah. Why? February is when I start to feel good
Terrible.
again. I don't know what it is.
What a terrible month. Um, it is. It's a bad month.
It's a bad month. I
It's a
hate it
bad month.
here.
I hate it here.
2 more
Well,
days. Really, 1 more day.
everyone, it is fun following me. You wanna know why? Because I take everyday misogyny and tell you that it's a pain in the ass, but I do it with a smile and with a charm that no one can replicate.
Yes, this is true. I enjoy
I didn't
following you.
So, follow
But
me at to all the follow this channel to all the
mhm.
men I've tolerated before, because if you're not a podcast app listener, you can listen to every episode on YouTube. Follow me at Men I've Tolerated Pod on Instagram so you can catch our other live show tomorrow night, which is about One Tree Hill season 3,
Which I thought was tonight.
which Jules thought was tonight, which made me panic because I was like, she didn't watch Mermaids.
But I did, but I spent all day watching One Tree Hill.
Mhm. Mhm. It's fine.
Our next Still Comfy, besides One Tree Hill, but on YouTube will be,
Titanic.
Titanic over on Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous. Because they're re-releasing it for Valentine's Day, friends.
I know. Should you be able to win an Oscar for your score if I can literally just recreate it by making mouse sounds? And that's our promo for Titanic. I will cut this out to be like, no. I love you, Celine. I remembered today how long Titanic is, and now I'm like,
Yeah.
God.
It was when I owned it, it was two
It's 2
VHS
cassettes.
tapes
2
in one. And I
cassettes.
was like,
2
but we're
cassettes.
trying to jump on that wagon of,
Fucking
trend.
James
So
Cameron.
fucking
Fucking James
I
Cameron.
fucking hate James Cameron. He doesn't know how to make a short
He
movie.
doesn't know how to make a good
They just
movie.
keep giving him money to make
I
long ass
what?
movies.
I'm real
Avatar was like deeply offensive. I forget to which community, but like they're like, don't go
the
see it.
indigenous community.
That's it. Thank you. I was like, because I tune out when people talk shit about James Cameron. I'm like, I already know. We don't like
He's a
him.
bad man like Ryan Murphy. Who Ryan Murphy got you because he cried during the Emmys or something. I
No,
was like,
because
he's a
he
bad
elevated.
man.
No, he elevated all of the Black and queer people he worked with, who took 25 years to get any recognition in their careers. That got me. But you're not wrong.
He built his career on taking the queer community, people of color, and the disabled community and making them sideshows in his shows, like his whole shows.
I know.
And then being like, but it was historically accurate.
I know.
So, anyways, follow me at Men I've Tolerated Pod for more tea on Ryan Murphy and why he's terrible, but I'll still make Jules watch Glee one time for this show. and
or that documentary.
And catch us next time for my rendition of My Heart Will Go On. I am so curious to see. I was in 3rd grade when Titanic came out, and I can't wait to see if it holds up.
So I told Mario.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "Oh my gosh, are you excited about Titanic?" I said, "Listen, when I saw Titanic at the Briggsmore movie theater, which is no longer there, I was like, I love this movie because I had a
Everyone
thing
loved
for
it.
Leonardo DiCaprio because
Everyone
Growing
loved it.
Pains." Then all the basic ass bitches at school came back and were like, "We love Titanic," and it's like, "Well, I'm not getting on that wagon because I don't want to be anything like you people."
I was the complete opposite. Everyone came back to school being like, I love Titanic. And I was like, my fucking dad won't let me see it because they get naked once. And then
I don't think you see anything.
No, you don't. I think you see her nibbles when he draws her, or you see a drawing of her nibbles.
Yeah.
So, anyways, catch us up for like ship nudity in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
For Still Comfy. And we'll see you tomorrow on the River Court. And remember, everybody, stay cozy, stay comfy. Bye.